our healthy relationship with children comes from having a healthy relationship with self.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 343. Today is a special episode where I am making a guest appearance on the Happily Together podcast with Kara and Caleb. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast. Here it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have, and when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clark Fields. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of the best-selling book, Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Welcome back to the Mindful Mama podcast. So glad you are here. Hey, listen, if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you have gotten some value from the Mindful Mama podcast, please do me a favor and go over to the Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a rating and review. It just helps the podcast grow more. It takes 30 seconds of your time, and I really, really greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. In a moment, I'm going to be sharing this great conversation with you where I make a guest appearance on the Happily Together podcast with Kara, a former celebrity chef, and Caleb, an ex-NFL linebacker. In this conversation, we talk about what it means to parent mindfully. And this is really a must listen for any parent, but also for anyone who's looking to increase their mindfulness and learn how to consciously move from reacting to responding in life. And so there are 3 important takeaways I want you to listen for in this episode. How change begins with a willingness to accept that you're not where you want to be. We're going to talk about how to raise confident children and how to allow our children to become our greatest teachers. And we talk a lot about mindfulness in this episode, and it's so timely because I am here to invite you to a free mindfulness challenge specifically for parents that we are holding on April 26th through May 2nd, 2022. And we've talked about it. You'll hear so many benefits in this episode. But are you practicing, right? So I've tried to make it super simple for you to start. You and your partner and your friends, anyone can join me for a free 7-day challenge. I challenge you to practice for 7 days. And I made it really easy, and we have giveaways and all kinds of fun stuff. And it's at mindfulmamamentor.com/challenge. So go ahead and join me at mindfulmamamentor.com/challenge. Now join me at the table as I talk to Kara and Caleb.
So today we talked with Hunter Clark Fields, and she wrote a book called Raising Good Humans. It's a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. And I found Hunter because my dear friend Mercedes gifted me her book for my baby shower.
Why, thank you, Mercedes.
Thank you, Mercedes.
For making us
And
better parents.
I was like, this is so good. It's so crucial to understand our healthy relationship with children comes from having a healthy relationship with self. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. She's really doing a lot of great work at kind of just breaking the cycle of reactive parenting. And again, this lifestyle of living reactive, it doesn't apply to parenting.
Yeah.
But it applies to life in general. But I think the whole consensus with her and the work she's doing in regards to parenting is just modeling healthy relationships, starting with the relationship that you have with yourself. I think it's beautiful. She says so many great things. She talks about her clear method. It's the method that she basically uses to help people and parents become more mindful. Very applicable and something that you can apply to your life now. I can't get over what she said. I just love the concept of walking with your shadow in front of you.
Oh, that was so good.
She goes into it. I don't want to give it away, but when she said that, I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, it's really the beauty of accepting all parts of ourselves.
All parts.
But she breaks it down in such a beautiful way.
When your shadow is behind you, you're kind of afraid.
You're trying to hide it.
Well, you're afraid too that it's chasing you kind of deal. But
Yep.
when you're walking with your shadow in front of you, you're not afraid of the things that are surfacing in your life. The shadow parts of your life, they're actually coming
It's
as a
such a
gift.
it's such a beautiful visual of
It is so
moving
beautiful.
from reactivity to consciousness, right? Because when we are afraid of something, we're constantly reacting, and when we can move that to the forefront and actually just be conscious of it.
Yes, and so Hunter Clark Fields, she is a mindful mama mentor, and she's the creator of the Mindful Parenting course, and she's the host of the Mindful Mama podcast. She is wildly followed author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. She helps parents bring more calm and peace into their daily lives. I think we could all use a little bit more calm and peace.
Absolutely.
Hunter has over 20 years of experience in the meditation practices and has taught mindfulness to thousands worldwide.
She's wonderful. She is full of insight and great practical wisdom on how to move out of reactive parenting into mindful parenting.
Yeah, so good. We'll have everything that's mentioned in this podcast, the few books, the course, where you can find Hunter. It is all listed in the description to this podcast.
Let's go ahead and dive into this enjoyable conversation.
I'm feeling good today. Oh, I'm feeling good today. Oh, yeah.
Hunter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you here, especially as we enter this little home stretch before our first child comes. I selfishly was like, I want to have Hunter on the podcast. She talks about mindful parenting. She's a mindful mama mentor. And we're just so glad you're here.
Well, I'm glad you asked me. I mean, I think that's really insightful of you to be thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like a lot of times we go into at least like first birth and it's all like the stuff, the labor, and then you're just like, oh. Okay. You know, like there's this whole world of parenting after that. That is probably more important, you know?
Right.
Just, like, really
right.
interesting.
Ever since we found out that we were pregnant,
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, the first question that I sat with was like, what kind of parent do I want to be? And I've done so much work since, walking away from football over a decade ago and going on my own kind of path and my own journey of healing. So much of my healing has been going back and really looking at the ways that I was parented. And I say that with such compassion and grace towards my parents. I do honestly believe that they did the best that they can. But I never really correlated the mental health challenges that I faced as a young adult with being wildly overparented. And so when we found out that we were having a kid, I was just like, I do not want to be that overparent. That parent that overparents. So like Julie Lycott Hames is somebody that I've gotten to know pretty well, and we've talked to her. But it's just been an interesting journey because she's not even here yet, and I know that she's going to be our greatest teacher. But yet I've already learned so much. It's just in the process of like, what kind of parent do I want to be? And when I answer that question, it is a mindful parent. And so I second what Kara say, and I'm just so glad that you're here with us today.
Yeah. Can you just tell us a little bit maybe about why this work? What got you into mindful parenting?
Well, mindfulness came into my life when I was younger because I was I was a highly sensitive kid and I just felt things very deeply, and I would feel kind of crushed by the world fairly often. Like it was just a lot to handle as living as a human being is. And mindfulness was something I started studying as a teenager. And, and I started really, really practicing just a few years before my first daughter was born. And it made such a profound impact on my life. So I was very up and down. I would feel very like fall into these pits every kind of week or two in my life. And after I had a steady meditation practice, and I started reading for a decade, but then after I had a steady meditation practice, I'd really just like stopped falling into those pits every week or two. It was like, whoa, like I am so much more even keeled than I was. And I hadn't even realized it was just this missing thing. And it was lovely. It really gave me a lot of equanimity in a big way. It had a big impact on my life. And then I had my first daughter, and lo and behold, she's kind of highly sensitive as well. And it's really hard. Like that first year,
was really hard. I remember, she would just remember I was in this birth center and my friends, they would be they would just seem so blissed out. And I'd be like, it's hard. Why am I struggling? And, and then she started walking and talking around 18 months, 2 years old. And as I parented her, kind of just basically probably repeating the patterns that I had been parented with, this frustration, my temper came up, this anger. It's so crazy. It's so funny to think about because the little adorable 18-month-old face is so cute, and it's so hard to imagine that person can trigger so much anger in you.
Yeah.
And I yelled at her. I scared her. I could see I scared her in her eyes. And I mean, this just wasn't there was a pattern of there was this happening. And I really had to say, okay, well, lying on the floor crying and guilt and shame is not really helping me very much.
Yeah.
What can I learn here? And so I had to really kind of go back to the mindfulness practices, because one of the things that it really, really helps us do is that emotional regulation, and helps us to practice impulse control and also the awareness. So I had this awareness of when my daughter has big feelings, and she gets these big feelings in my body, it felt unacceptable. It felt like this was unacceptable. And then I yelled, and then I realized I had those feelings because when I was little and I had those big feelings, my father's temper came out at me. And so he gave me this message loud and clear that it was unacceptable to have these big feelings. And so you could see just kind of how that pattern perpetuated itself.
Yeah.
And so that's really where all this work comes into play, is me wanting to do better is basically what I was really bad at. I was kind of good at doing all these other things. And why am I so bad at parenting? And also I was at that time, I started to listen to all these parenting coaches, and they would say respond this way. And I would be like, but I can't respond this way. And so I had to really wanted to bring together all that work with mindfulness that helps us to regulate ourselves with that work with skillful communication, because you literally kind of can't access that new learning if you aren't able to kind of access your whole brain through some regulation of the nervous system, which is a whole other thing. So
No, it's so good.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love it. I love just this idea of entering into parenting consciously. And I think so many people don't take inventory of the ways that they were parented and of the things that they carry into parenting. Yeah. We carry so much subconsciously in. And I think it's on your website where you say a healthy parent begins with a healthy relationship with you. Can you?
No, it's
go ahead.
A healthy life, or I wrote it down. It was
healthy relationship with your child begins with a healthy relationship with yourself.
I think it's important to, before you ask your question, one, I know someone has probably said this to you, but just honoring you. I think what I heard in all of that is this willingness and this wanting to do better, or this wanting to parent differently. There was that curiosity in you to begin with, and I think that's such a fundamental thing that has to, before change happens, there has to be can I do this better? And it's not that it's not enough, but can I do it better? I just think that's so powerful, of having that curiosity and that desire to parent differently. That's where it all starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that note on curiosity. Can you unpack that statement for us? A healthy relationship with your children begins with a healthy relationship with you. Yeah. For someone who maybe is on the parenting journey or thinking about the parenting journey, how do we begin that healthy relationship with self so that we can be in healthy relationship with our children?
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break.
I am still sometimes a yeller. I yell too much to my kids. I have 4 kids. It was really bad. I just have to take this to change something that was not healthy, not for me and not for my kids. I can listen to them, and that's great because they know that I'm listening to them. Now I'm less reactive. I'm not explode when my kids say something like I did before. It's calm. Everything is calm here now. So take these classes because will help you. Will teach you a lot of things, and you can see that you are not alone in this world, that you're not a bad mother. I think you need to take these classes.
Get on the waitlist for Mindful Parenting at mindfulparentingcourse.com. That's mindfulparentingcourse.com.
Well, it's such a awesome fundamental truth to kind of like pull out of this whole thing, because we go into parenting and we want the best for our kids, and so many people want to do the best for our kids, and we're very like other focused in that we're child focused, right? And it's really, really fascinating because actually all the, what we want for our kids, and probably one of the things you're thinking about now, because you're entering, into this, is that we want them to be securely attached, right? Like we want them to have a secure attachment. We've learned about that, how it promotes confidence, more happiness, better sibling relationships, better relationships with friends, all of these things. We're like, oh God, I need to have that. And so we think like, we need to do all these things, or like I have to sleep a certain way or whatever. And really, what's really, really fascinating about that is that the research really shows that it's not about, has nothing to do with how you sleep. It has nothing to do with like what kind of carrier you have your baby in.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with your ability to be present, your ability to feel your own feelings, process your own feelings, your ability to have a healthy relationship with yourself, because you can't be sensitive and connecting with another if you can't be sensitive, you can't be self-aware, you can't be connecting with yourself. If you're trying to connect with another but you're like closed off to yourself, that connection is just not going to happen. And that's when like insecure attachments and things like that happen. So it really, really begins with our ability to be aware, self-aware, our ability to feel our feelings, our ability to practice, regulate our feelings, all of that, like our ability to take responsibility for ourselves and our stress levels and all of those things as best we can in the circumstances we have, because we don't all have the greatest circumstances to be able to do that. But that's where that relationship starts. It starts with your relationship with you and that self-awareness.
Which all starts with mindfulness. I love it. We just solved a lot of world's problems.
We just solved all the parenting problems.
I love it. I love that you brought up a secure attachment, because I from the way that I understand it, your attachment style is derived from usually your primary caretaker. And I know, and again, I say, Mom, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are because you love everything that I do, and I appreciate the support. I know that you did the best that you could absolutely do, but I also know, like, my father was always at work, and then so my mom really, we were on the road. I was an athlete ever since I was young. My mom did not have the mindfulness or the self-awareness, and she was a very reactive parent. And I never understood how that anxious attachment that was created between my mother and I, and really created, and it was like my, the language of my nervous system, how that played out a role in my adult relationships as I began to get older and begin to date people and so on and so forth. And I remember one time dating a girl before you, and she said essentially like, "Why are you always watching me?" And I remember, like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'll just be sitting on the couch or whatever, but I'll just like watch. And I would do it without knowing that I would do it. But I suddenly, after I started to do a lot of work around attachment styles, realized that, with my mother constantly being a reactive parent, right? I was always waiting for the, proverbial shoe to drop. I was always on high alert, waiting for something to happen, and then I could respond accordingly. So that began to shape my adult relationships in so many different ways. And it was empowering drawing that connection. And so I say that, I guess my question is, I guess you kind of answered it with the mindfulness thing, but how do we begin to really move from move from whatever attachment style we are in to helping create a more secure attachment?
Yeah, 'cause that's really interesting because yeah, they say like you're 70% likely to have the same attachment
Yeah.
style like as your primary caregiver.
Mhm.
But we have neuroplasticity, right? We can
Right.
grow, we can change, we can heal, and all of those things. And so yeah, it what the work you're doing, right? So this in mindful parenting, in the mindful parenting method, we start with mindfulness to help us calm our reactivity, right? But to help us, we're all gifted with a nervous system that has fight, flight, or freeze,
Yeah.
right? We all, that nervous system can get overloaded and then it cuts off access to our whole brain, right? So we need to, if we're going to be able to parent with with all of our resources, we need to be able to sort of practice that. And then the next step is understanding our triggers, right? Understanding our
Mm.
childhood, understanding like for me, it was understanding like why when she feels so upset, why does it feel so like, oh, like
Mm.
viscerally in my body, right? Like, and so, and part of mindfulness practice is like being aware of the sensations of your body. We say
Mhm.
mindfulness, but it's like, it's about being aware of the sensations in your
So
body
good.
with kindness and curiosity.
Yeah.
So understanding it really really helps to do the work you did to kind of like cognitively talk it out, understand where our what our patterns are, so we can have that awareness of them. But also, so the thing that we do in the next step in mindful parenting is that we practice to be able to take care of those difficult feelings, because basically all of us were taught like don't have those feelings.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
don't be upset, don't be sad, don't cry, don't be angry, just go away if you are, or you're wrong and bad if you are. And so for us to be able to, we're human, right? Like we're going to have the
Absolutely.
full range. We're going to be like peaceful and at ease, and we're going to have like anger and rage and aggression, right? Like that's normal for all human beings.
Mm.
So to be able to, we have to have a healthy ways to process those things that come in, right? To notice like that's tightness in my chest, that's a feeling in my throat, and start to listen to the messages our body is sending us. And that those are mindfulness tools, right? Like those are tools that we can do to start to have a healthy relationship and move through those feelings. And then what's beautiful about that is that it's like a 2-for-1 deal
Yeah.
because as you practice maybe sort of building that muscle of non-reactivity, as you practice learning how to process your feelings in a healthier way, like not trying to block it, not drowning in it, but just kind of mindfully taking that middle path through it, you're then modeling that for your kid. And
Mm.
kids are not,
Yes.
they're
Mm.
not listening, they're watching the show, right? They're not
Yeah.
listening to the dialogue.
Yeah.
They're watching every second. So it's really about, you have to live what you want your kids to learn. So if you
So
want
good.
your kids to learn these things, that's what you have to live. And that
Mm.
it always points back to ourselves in a really real way.
I love that
Mhm.
you said building the muscle of non-reactivity. It's a
Uh-huh.
muscle. It's like you're
Uh-huh.
building that muscle. You can practice building that muscle. So good.
Mhm. And I love the line, you have to live what you want your kids to
Yeah.
learn.
Damn
So
it.
beautiful.
And you're not going to get it right like
Yeah.
all the time. Like no one is,
Yeah.
like no one's going to get it right all the time. And your kids will want attention. And like the best we can do, I think it's so important to remember the absolute best we can do as parents is good enough. And this
Mm.
is like a D.W. Winnicott, a psychoanalyst in the 50s, coined that phrase, good enough
Mm.
parent. And it's because like, even if you were perfect, like that would not be good. Like you would have a kid who could not deal with life if you
Yeah.
were like
Yeah.
perfectly responsive. It would be fake anyway. Like
Yeah.
it's just not real. So it's okay for us to, you talked in the beginning about like you were overparented, and it's okay for us. And what I think is an important message to kind of pull out from that and to remind ourselves is that it's okay for us to have a little space, to have space in our relationship with our kids, space for us to have our own life,
So
have
good.
things that fulfill us,
Mhm.
have time to
Mhm.
So
ourselves.
good.
We don't have to like be, it's not about 100% of the time we have to be present. It's not even about 80% of the time we have to be present. Like probably it's like 30 to 50 maybe, you know, like it's not about like being an absolute perfect angel
Yeah.
of anything. It's about being real and practicing to give ourselves the space to be able to then choose how we want to respond, right? Like that's when our nervous system gets us in this mode of like, oh my God, it's an emergency and I have to respond right now. And the truth is
Absolutely.
99% of the time it's not an emergency, and you
Yeah.
can take that space, and that space is what allows you to make a choice rather than just repeat old patterns.
I just love this too because it's like this isn't just about parenting. This is life.
Yeah.
This is going to help you throughout every area of your life. Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I
go.
think like what I hear with you and what you're saying, this only works, I feel like, for the long haul when there is self-compassion involved.
Yes.
Because you've said it like, I'm going to mess up, I'm
Yeah.
going to miss the mark, I'm going to be reactive, I'm going to hurt my
I'm going to
children, I'm
fail.
going to, whatever it is. Like self-compassion is a critical component in all of this and just really in life in general. So I guess my question is, has there been a recent moment of maybe you not measuring or reaching the standard that you want to practice, and then how did you respond in self-compassion? So what did that self-compassion look like for you?
Yeah, there has been a recent moment. I mean, there always will be because we're human, right? Um, we I don't know. I made a joke about we were talking about I don't know how like in the 80s there were all these like songs about jumping. There's like
Jump around.
jump
Jump
through
around.
and the Pointer Sisters jumping, and there was crisscross jump. Anyway, no one's gonna remember this. I know, but anyway, they were making a joke about it, and I was like, yeah. You know, everybody in the 80s was like, they were jumping all the time and we were skinnier and whatever. And it was like a little bit unskillfully said. It was kind of like a little bit of a fat shaming kind of way of saying it. And it was like not such a skillful way of saying something. And so, and one of my daughters is a little heavier, and I was just like, oh crap. Like later I was like, that wasn't such a great thing to say. So the next morning, as I kind of realized and processed it, I just went into her bed and I was like, hey, good morning in the morning. And we snuggle in the morning a lot. And I said, I just told her, I said, when I said that thing last night, I said this, I said, I just want to apologize for that because I think it was not a cool thing for me to say. It wasn't good. So the point of that is like we're in a relationship, right? Like our the thing with our kids, it's like a relationship, just like a relationship with your spouse, and you're gonna be human, you're gonna say stupid unskillful things from time to time because you're human. And so when we can offer ourselves compassion, then we're able to do that step of we're able to face that step of like, let me like make a repair here. Let me acknowledge that I was making a dumb statement and repair. And the reason why that works with self-compassion, which is so powerful, like we're in a culture that's very shaming and blaming. And if I said to myself, oh, you're such a jerk, you're a horrible person for, or if I shame myself for making that like off the cuff, unskillful, not great comment, then I would be like, oh, I'm terrible. It kind of puts you in this like pit where you can't really make a change, right? You just feel helpless and you feel you just feel like you can't, there's something inherently wrong with me.
Absolutely.
And etc. But if you can say, oh, that was a stupid thing to say. It's like, oh, that stinks. Okay, well, you said a stupid thing. That's life. I know you have a good intentions in general. You're generally a good person. If you can have that kind of more that dialogue with yourself, like give yourself a soft landing when you mess up, then you're able to pick yourself up and start again, right? You're able to begin anew, because the truth is like any kind of growth is kind of outside our comfort zone. And so for me to say, wow, where did that come from? And kind of understand like, there's something going on there, to grow from that comment, that mistake, I have to kind of get out of my comfort zone, and to be that, I have to be softer, kinder to myself. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
It makes total
Absolutely.
sense. And it really does create such a sense of safety for your daughter. I'm imagining with my own mom, I've said this before. And again, I echo Caleb. My parents did the best they possibly could with the tools that they had in parenting.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I say a lot about her. I wish she would have been kinder to herself. I wish she would have been more
Mm-hmm.
gentle with herself, because her harshness towards herself
Was
taught
modeled.
what taught me to be mean to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining that conversation with your daughter, and what it represented was that she is surrounded by safety to make mistakes. She's surrounded by safety to say things that are, unkosher or whatever, and then acknowledge them and own them and apologize for them, and not interpret that as being a part of her identity, or having to carry the shame around it. But I really love that, because it does create just
It's
this
just difference. Yeah, sorry. I mean,
ecosystem of safety in a home where we're safe to make mistakes, we're safe to mess up, we're safe to be fully human, and then we're safe to own that and move on from that. So yeah, I
it's
love
just the
it.
difference between like behavioral change coming from a place of love and self-compassion
Yeah.
versus behavioral change coming from a sense of self-criticism and self-hatred, which I was taught the latter.
Yeah.
And it works for a season. Like, you suck, Caleb, do better. You suck, Caleb, you're missing the mark, do better. Like, you're a failure, Caleb, do better. That was motivating for a season, but then what you don't realize is that's literally eroding your life from the
Yeah.
inside out. And then you kind of wake up one day and you realize, oh my God, I absolutely hate myself. And then so if we can just go back from the beginning to like, oh no, like, I'm going to model self-compassion. I'm going to model this safe landing. We're going to make mistakes. It's not about not making mistakes in life. It's about being mindful in our response and responding with self-compassion. It definitely creates an ecosystem of emotional and psychological safety for the young people in our life to do the same, which can create behavior change coming from self-compassion and love, which is going to overall affect, I want to believe, your overall sense of happiness and well-being in life.
Yeah, almost. And tell me if this is a true statement, but it's almost the inherent belief that you're good, that your children are good, that they're inherently so good, and that if a mistake is made, if a comment is made that's out of alignment, the work then is to bring the self back into loving alignment, as opposed to you're inherently bad. We got to make sure you don't say any bad statements.
It's so different. Such a different way of
Yeah.
living life. Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. We are supported by KiwiCo, and it's spring right now, and it is the time for new discoveries. Spring really brings along new curiosities, like, why do flowers bloom? Why do caterpillars turn into butterflies? Why is the day longer? All of those things, right? And there's so many opportunities to learn, and that's why I love KiwiCo. KiwiCo delivers monthly science and art projects that celebrate a child's natural curiosity and sparks a love for lifelong learning. I gave my daughters the KiwiCo Kiwi Crate when they were like 6 and 7 years old. I remember Maggie making the arcade claw and just really worked so perfectly. They had a blast with it. And the quality is incredible. Like, there's real engineering, science, and art products that they make. They're high quality materials. But what I want to tell you is, like, my kids are lifelong learners now. They are so creative and they are so curious, as teens. And they even do amazing KiwiCo projects as teens, like the amazing ukulele. But it has really sparked this natural curiosity and this belief and confidence in this ability to do things. Kids can discover the engineering and mechanics behind everyday objects, the science of chemistry and of cooking, geography and culture from new cultures, and brand new art and design techniques, all through seriously fun hands-on projects. Listen, they're so excited to see it arrive in the mail. The day the box arrives becomes like the best day of the month. And KiwiCo makes it super easy to do our part to encourage our children to be those innovators and creative thinkers. You won't believe what they can build and accomplish with KiwiCo. We give them the tools to learn new skills, build new experiences, and make new connections to the broader world. It can be hard to find these creative ways to keep your children busy and challenged. But don't worry, KiwiCo does the legwork for you so you can spend quality time tackling projects together. There really, really is something for kids of all ages, from like 2 to adults practically. And so there's no commitment with these crates. You can pause or cancel anytime. Step into spring and celebrate the season of discovery with a KiwiCo subscription. Get 30% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line with the code HUNTER at kiwico.com. That's 30% off your first month at kiwico.com. Use the promo code HUNTER.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is a huge difference in point of view, and I think that we were raised, culturally, like that's kind of a Judeo-Christian thing that the United States is based on, is this like belief in inherent badness that we have to correct. And the truth is that we have all of it, right? Like we have all of it. And when we can accept, and the paradox of all of that is that when we can accept, like when I accepted my anger, when I accepted that I had aggression, right? Like it's so hard for like women, right? We're so shamed for any kind of anger or aggression. I had to like practice to accept that. When we can start to accept like that we have all those energies, that are of human, like we have those in us, then they can kind of flow more, they don't get so stuck, it's like then the river's flowing a little bit more. We're not putting up these dams and blockages, it's that I think of a phrase I like to think about is like the idea of walking with your shadow in front of you. It's just like when it's behind you, it's like this big, scary. Like, I don't want to look at these bad things, right? But when you can walk in front of you and say, yeah, like, I'm not perfect. I say some stupid stuff. I've got an ego in my head that says stupid, selfish things too, and I've got this, but I've also got this, right? And then when we can start to accept that and look at it and say, okay, this is what it is to be human. This is what it is to be me. And that's okay. Then it's actually easier to nurture those positive seeds, right? It's easier to nurture like the seeds of gratitude and appreciation and generosity, and the seeds that you want to nurture if you're not just trying to like push back demons, if you're just like, okay, like they're there, that's it, that's part of life, like, oh, hello, like hello anger, I see you there you are, then it's going to just pass through. It's easier.
Absolutely.
I love that. I have never heard that before, and I'm going to use it.
Walking with your shadow
in front of you.
It's amazing.
Like that is so good. I feel like from a young age, I have vivid memories of being outside in the dark and being scared of the dark, and like having the moon cast a shadow and being just like that idea of like running away from this thing. It reminds me of the Barbara Brown Taylor quote that has changed my life when I first read it. I'm a huge Barbara Brown Taylor fan. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's one of my favorite like speakers and writers of culture, like kind of intersecting culture and spirituality. And she has a quote out there that says, it's not the sadness that sinks a person's life. It's the energy a person spends avoiding the sadness that sinks a person's life. Right? And so it's not the grief that sinks a person's life. It's not the worry. It's not the anger. It's not the fear. It's the energy that we spend. But when we can walk with our shadow in front of us, right, we can recognize and accept and like, oh, you're here. It's that Rumi quote, like, it's all of these unwanted visitors, you're inviting them into your house and giving them a seat at the table. Right? They're a messenger communicating a message to us that's for us. And it's just shifting the paradigm with all of that. I just love that. Walking with your shadow in front of you. Beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. I know that with the work that you do, you have a framework. I love frameworks.
We love systems
I
and
love
frameworks.
systems and frameworks because it just helps my very messy mind compartmentalize things. Can you go with, when it comes to really moving out of the reactive to maybe responding, becoming a more responsive parent, you have the mindful parenting method clear. Can you maybe just break that down?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I know. We're so excited when we're like, it's an acronym.
Yes.
Yay!
So helpful.
Yeah, so the clear method is it starts with the big first step is calm, right? The C stands for calm. And that means calming our reactivity, right? So we can have habits that steady the heart, the mind, and the nervous system, because we all have a nervous system that's wired for survival. We all have different causes and conditions in our life, right? So these habits that steady the heart, the mind, and the nervous system, the ability to like kind of start to disarm your triggers, understand and disarm them, and then be able to process difficult feelings. So that's like a lot under the calm step of the mindful parenting method. And that's what people are sometimes, we always start with you, right? Like with that, because that's the foundation. That's how you can access your whole brain. That's how you can access your deeper intentions, all of that. And then the L stands for listen. And we listen reflectively, creating connection. And so the thing is, we want to be able to parent, we want our kids to cooperate, listen to us, and things like that. And to do that, we want to be able to cultivate like that connection, because that's the glue, that's the motivation for your kids to cooperate with you. It's the idea of working with intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic motivation. So listening mindfully, listening reflectively is really creating connection. And then E stands for express. So expressing yourself authentically, honestly, and effectively, because when we need to like hold a boundary with our kids, when we need, we have needs that we need to honor, how do we express that without, using blame, shame, and punishment? We have practices to skillfully express yourself authentically, honestly, and effectively. And then the A stands for attend. Just it all comes back to like being present. Be present for yourself. Be present for as best you can for what's real. And then the R is resolve problems based on needs. So rather than we teach a method of, rather than kind of like using power over, we teach about how to resolve problems based on needs. What are you needing? What am I needing? How can we get both of those needs met, right? So rather than like my way or the highway, it's like, how can we both get our needs met? And there's often many ways to get all of our needs met. So it's about teaching interpersonal skills as well.
Yeah, I love this.
So calm, listen, express, attend, resolve.
With this method, how have you seen it show up differently? I know you have 2 daughters. How have you seen it play out differently with 2 different personalities?
Well, I mean, it's interesting to see it. I've seen it play out in like lots of different people, right? Like in all these different people. Well, it's interesting, with my older daughter, I was more unskillful. Like she got some unskillful patterns in the very beginning. So it's interesting to see that, with her, I had to like kind of, there was like kind of, I had to undo and then redo a little bit with her. And so that was challenging. And also she's very sensitive. I'm very sensitive. And but she really challenges me. She's like the catalyst of all this, her sensitivity, because she was just like not standing for it, but for my old unskillful ways. So I have to be really self-reflective with her and really honest, and I have to practice to like create that connection, listen to create connection. It's interesting, when she was 4, I listened to her talk about My Little Ponies and talk about the whole story of My Little Ponies and what Fluttershy is doing and blah, blah, blah. And now when she's 14, she talks to me about all these different things, like on her own terms, right? So because she knows I'll listen to her, right? So it's always coming back to that listening for creating connection. With my second daughter, it's interesting because it's so different, right? Like second daughter, I was like, all right, I'm starting to understand some of this stuff 3 years later, right? And I'm putting together things. I've been taking trainings. I've been going and putting all this stuff together. And so she's, she's and she's like a more emotionally intuitive person.
Mm.
You know, it's really interesting to kind of see that. And she's more expressive of her inner self, you know, and what's kind of happening with her emotionally. So I don't know, it's so hard to say.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
people, right? They're such different personalities. But yeah, it's interesting. Like the biggest changes I see are like when people start using all the tools and then they're like, oh, like my kids are listening to me. They're like, oh my God, like it's so exciting, you know, to see, because what happens is we get in a pattern, kids get in a pattern of resistance if we're doing things like threatening and ordering, you know, and like if you have a 2-year-old, you're gonna see this soon. Like you get in the world of 2-year-olds. Poor 2-year-old's life is like constant commands and orders.
Yeah.
Like put on your shoes, take off your shoes, put on your shirt, pick up the toy, come over here, go over there, get in the car seat, right? Like it's like endless. And so it's interesting to think about like, well, how can we communicate with this person without just issuing commands? Because what happens is like nobody likes being ordered around, even if you're 2. And so they start to develop a habit of resisting you. And that's really where a lot of that starts. And then we start up the ante and go for the threats, right? But it all starts there. And it's so interesting to see like, well, how would I say this to like my mom if she had to put on her shoes and get out the door, right? So it's interesting to kind of start to shift our mindset about communication, because we're in a culture, in a sea of communication that speaks to kids in a certain way as a lesser than way. It's really interesting.
That is so interesting. I love too, as you were talking, I was just thinking about how much of this method is, and I know it is one of the steps, but it is about being present. It's about being totally fully here and responding from the here and now, and being with the emotions, being with the needs, being with the very essence of the human that you're with. And I love that, because I think as much as we can prepare and practice and have vision for how we're going to parent.
This is going on our fridge.
Yeah. So much of it will come down to our ability to be present with her.
Yeah. Can you, so when the last resolve, solve problems based on needs, is this like resolving between parent and child? Is that what you're?
Yeah, well, I mean, the kind of secret about like mindful parenting and raising good humans is that these are life skills for any relationship.
Yes.
So they're universal skills.
Yeah.
Actually. But between parent and child. So if you have a need and your child has a need, you're going to have conflict. Like conflict is totally normal. It's like the goal is not to never have conflict. But when you have conflict, and your kid wants to do one thing, you want to do another thing, they want to stay, you want to go, whatever it is, right? Like then we can kind of get beneath that level of like surface solutions, and instead say, what am I needing?
Yeah.
And what are you needing? And maybe how can we meet both of our needs?
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of something that we can start to do really from a very, very young age, is start to think about, well, I need this, you need this. How can we meet these needs? And so and when our kids are older, we can have a conversation about it. We have a whole process. Like I have people write on a big piece of paper and, I have a whole process with it, but like it can start when they're young, when they're nonverbal, where you just verbalize what your guesses are about their needs and start to say that. So it's really, a process that can be adapted to any age.
It's never about the thing; it's about the need behind the thing. It's just so important to remember that. I know in your book, "Raising Good Humans," it's the mindful guide to breaking the life cycle or the cycle of reactive parents and raising kind, confident kids. Can we kind of shift the conversation into that last piece of raising confident kids?
Kind and confident.
Kind too, yes. That's good. I'm just always kind of interested in the confidence side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I learned early on that my confidence was found in my skill set and my ability. Right. And so that was a very, big surge of confidence at a young age, but I never really grew the self-efficacy part. I never really grew into the inner self-confidence that I could do hard things, that I can fail and get back up again, right? The confidence that comes from resilience. That was never kind of cultivated inside of me. And so having only confidence in my skill set and talent, the challenge became, when I get into the NFL, suddenly I'm not the most skillful, I'm not the most talented. And I'm like, fuck, where's my confidence? It's like, I've lost all confidence. So I think the question is how do we begin to cultivate a more intrinsic confidence that's derived from self-worth?
Yeah. That's a great question. And it is interesting to think about it. Like you had this external sense, and that's amazing. That's a powerful anchor in your
Yeah.
life. That's really cool. When I think about this, like the kind and confidence things, I think about like, well, what do I want for my kids ultimately? And ultimately, I want them to be comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
Good.
I want them to feel like themselves for who they are, accept their feelings, right? To be able to love and accept themselves exactly as they are, right? And that's really, really what that boils down to. Because if they can do that, if they can like themselves for they are, if they're comfortable in their own skin, then they can do anything, right?
Absolutely.
They
I love
can
that.
figure out how to
Absolutely.
solve problems and they can overcome adversity. They can have resilience and all of those things. So I think ultimately that essentially comes down to us being able to love them unconditionally, accept them, whatever their feelings are, all the different feelings, right? So that's part of that kindness and confidence. Also in mindful parenting and raising good humans talk about like kind of the conditions of your home and simplifying, right? Kind of like part of that confidence, that resilience, that ability to problem solve and all of that comes from having a grounded and creative mind, and one of the worries I have for this generation of kids is that they never allowed to be bored.
Yeah.
They're never allowed to
Yeah.
have a moment, where they're not being entertained, etc. So I invite people to create some space for that, right? And it can be space in your schedule. It can be space in your home. Like in my house, we had a screen-free Sunday, like a Sabbath for screens for like ever, and when they're young. And the most amazing projects come out of Screen-Free Sunday, like
I love
these
that.
cardboard towers that are like super high, and the like making a fort in the woods, and all the different like that all comes out of when they have the space and they can't take the easy answer for how do I deal with being bored. And so part of it is that loving acceptance. I mean, that's really the essential piece, right? Like, I'm here, I see you, I hear you, I accept you. And that like attention, right? Like your eyes light up when you see your kids, you see them even when they're having a hard time and they're being a bitch. You're like, okay, I still love you. And then also some space and time in their lives to be able to discover who they are and to have skill sets, have competence, to have free and open play, to develop creative minds and things like that. I think that's also really important.
Yeah.
With your screen-free Sundays, is that something that you set the standard with since they were young, or is it something you had to backpedal on and be like, screens are
question.
going out of the house, and we are going to implement a new rule on Sundays?
No, we started from when we were young.
Good.
So I don't
We gotta do
know
that.
if that, like they're 11 and 14 now. I don't know if we could do that now
Yeah,
if we
right.
hadn't done
Yeah.
it from when they were young.
Yeah.
So it's something that I really encourage you to do when your kids are young.
I
'Cause
love that.
love that. I
Kara
love it.
wants screen-free weeks.
I do. Well, I think what you're touching on is such a beautiful, beautiful reality that we need space. We need space to explore who we are and what we want. And we live in a time where everything is just so crowded. Every moment is crowded and every day is crowded. And I love this perspective too, because the screen-free Sundays, how I interpret it is it's a gift. It's a gift
It
of a
is.
Sunday as opposed to a rule. It doesn't feel like a rule. It doesn't feel like
Wait, what do you mean by a gift?
like it's a gift that you're giving your family. It's this this expansive freedom gift of a Sunday, as opposed to sometimes when we create boundary or structure around things, it's like, well, we can't have screens from 7 to 2 or whatever the thing is, and it feels more rule oriented. This feels like I'm
I
going to
wonder
give my
if-
family a gift of a screen free Sunday.
Yeah. I wonder even if, like, I'm not diminishing what you're calling it, but like titling it like Creative Thinking Sunday, right? Where it's screen free, but we're going to essentially create new ideas on Sunday or whatever. I'm always like, what's the aspirational identity I want
Around
to
the Sunday.
pull people
Yeah,
into,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? So what's the aspirational
positive
identity
reframe.
around Sunday? Yeah. But no, I love that.
No, it's so helpful.
I should implement that into my life now.
Same. Let's start practicing.
We should. Sundays are when the good shows
We-
are on TV, though.
Hunter, we've in our non
Yeah, football's on Sundays, right? That might not work for you.
it's true. In our non child life, in our life without children, we've had a lot of time for screens and TV, and we keep joking that like it's all going to go out the window when she's here.
Honestly, it's something I've had to grieve. It's not that we're like constantly watching screens, but just that moment of, okay, I've worked hard today.
Yeah.
I've done my habits. I've met my goals. I've knocked off my to-do list. I'm satisfied. Like, this is good. Now I'm going to rest. I'm going to sit my ass on the couch. I'm going to watch this TV. I'm like, this is going to be gone.
Yeah.
Like, there's no just like really for, the time being. But anyways.
Yeah. I think too, one more thing is, as we're talking about it, I love that the screen-free Sundays or whatever the thing is, it creates a form of rhythm. And that is, I mean, if I think about the things in my life that have been the most beneficial, generally they come with some kind of rhythm, some kind of sense of, like rhythm and routine and renewal. And yeah.
I just want to go back to something that you said that I loved, because when you first said this, I was like, oh, where's she going to go with this? When you said what I want for my kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what is she going to go with this? I think I'm really in this place of knowing that I have a daughter coming. Like, she is her own entity. She's her own soul coming into this world for her own experience.
Our own journey.
And I don't want to, I already have like, she's going to be a creative. She's going to be an artist. She's going to be, and I'm like, fuck, maybe she's not.
Caleb literally is like, she's going to wear Vans and
Holy
jeans, and she's probably going to have long blonde curly hair.
Right. And so it's this constant dance between, and this is life in general, a constant dance of letting go of the expectations of how I think or where I should be in life or how I think life should look like, and being here now and allowing it to the transition, like you kind of said, like the river of life is already moving. I'm moving away from trying to push it to learning how to rest in it. And I'm moving away from this willful attempt to hold everything together and to force my life to happen, to really learning how to co-create with the universe and experience the life that is already happening. It's just it's just a wildly different approach to life. And I think the same applies to parenting when it comes, or how I want to parent, is allow this to be this organic process of being here as a safe space, but she's her own entity. But I love what you said, going back to my initial statement. I just want my children to be comfortable in their own skin. Like, that is so
powerful.
profound and powerful. I've lived feeling like a foreigner in my own skin for so many years of my life. And the onslaught of mental health challenges and just emotional unwell and unrest that comes from that is just very painful. So that being the intention, I just think is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the discussion about expectations, because we talk about that a lot in mindful parenting, the idea of beginner's mind, seeing things fresh, like being curious, right?
Yeah.
Who are you? Because kids are constantly changing, like letting go of our labels and kind of seeing like, who are you? Like allowing them to be that different person that they are. And also acknowledging like that's part of like the human tendency, that's part of the human brain, is to make shortcuts and make labels because the brain wants to conserve energy. And so, it's really interesting. I felt like, I was really very open to whoever my kids wanted to be. And then it was interesting. Earlier this year, my 14-year-old daughter came out as being gay. And I was just like, there was some processing, like it had gone against an expectation about her that I didn't even know I had, and it's just interesting to kind of like see that, right? Like we practice these things, like we water the seeds of open-mindedness, we water the seeds of like being open and curious, and we acknowledge, right? Like, like we're human, we're gonna make expectations, we may have different ideas. And so to have those processes, to be able to, my process was, okay, I got to go for a run. Actually, she told me after this like incredibly stressful day where my husband had been in the ER he was fine, but we were there for like 8 hours, and then I came home, and then it came out, and I was like, oh my God. And then I went for a run. And then after that, I was like, okay.
Like all of my tools I need right now. All of my tools.
That's beautiful that she came out to you, though. I feel like, I'm a full-time speaker, and the last few years I've been in schools, and the amount of students that have like just come out to me just because they don't feel safe enough to come out to the parents in their lives. Right. And it's just kind of like, I think it's so beautiful, and it's a testament to the work that you've done in creating that psychological safety that I'm sure can be attested to, the mindfulness that you bring into parenting.
And really speaks to that gift that you've given her of being comfortable in her own skin.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I've loved our conversation. I have a few rapid fire questions, if you're good with that.
All right.
So I'm going to give you a space for a billboard. You can say anything you want. What is it going to say?
Oh, God. I don't know. Love and accept yourself.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
I will gladly support that billboard. I know you wrote, I know you wrote a book, Raising Good Humans, but outside of your own book, what is the one book you would recommend? Or if you could only gift one book for the rest of your life, what would that book be?
Oh, well, it has to be the book that I do gift a lot, but and it has nothing to do with raising good humans, but it's called No Birth, No Death by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's it's about when somebody passes.
Wow.
Yes. That's beautiful.
I'm reading The Grace in Dying right now by Kathleen Singh, I think. Yeah, so I feel like that's so aligned. Beautiful. Last question. When it comes to living a life happily together, based on your experience, your life experience, what has helped that happen the most? Or what has been most beneficial when it comes to living a life happily together?
Communication and like understanding your self-awareness and communication. Like they have to go hand in hand, right?
Awesome.
Absolutely. Hunter, this has been so
yeah,
insightful.
Thank you so much for the time.
Your wisdom. Thank you for
can we talk about, like, real quick, anything you're doing, coaching, programs, offering services?
Oh yeah, sure. Mindful parenting is
I just cut you off.
And a membership, and I'm teaching I'm run it. You can find it at mindfulmamamentor.com. But I'm also doing, it's very exciting, a teacher training program where I'm teaching others to teach mindful parenting in their local communities, which is really cool. So
amazing.
That's those are the big things that are happening in my world.
Amazing. And we can find that all at your website. We'll link it below.
Yeah. I just need to publicly announce to all of our podcast listeners, I just cut my wife off in a minute.
I was literally going to say, Hunter, tell us about what you're doing.
I'm telling you, like, working together has been such a great experience because I'm not the easiest person to work with. Sometimes I just bulldoze, and Kara's like, you're bulldozing me. I'm like, damn it.
It's not bulldozing.
Yeah, sorry.
It's not bulldozing.
We literally finish each other's sentences.
We do.
It's a testament to our love.
Yes.
or codependency.
Or codependency. Oh, Hunter, again, thank you so much. And your book, Raising Good Humans, will link below.
Yeah.
That has been, I was gifted that at my baby shower,
Very cool.
and I have loved it.
What a great conversation, right? So remember, you are invited to join my free 7-day mindfulness challenge specifically made for parents. I made it super simple for you to start a mindfulness practice. You can join, your parenting partner can join, your parents, your friends, anybody who you think can enjoy any of the many benefits that we talked about in this episode. Share it with your parent friends. It's mindfulmamamentor.com/challenge. We start on April 26th. That's mindfulmamamentor.com/challenge. And thank you so much for listening. I'm so glad you've been here today. I hope this has watered your good seeds and helped you become more grounded and peaceful and present for your kids. And listen, if you love this episode, please do me a favor, share it on your Instagram stories and tag me at Mindful Mama Mentor. And you might as well follow me there and fill your feed with great mindful parenting inspiration. So thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to see you over on Instagram at the challenge. Let's start to transform things bit by bit, because it really, really is true that as you create more peace in yourself, you create more peace for everyone. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Namaste.
I'd say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better. And just, I'd say communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them and not feeling like you're yelling all the time or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth, and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I had this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clark-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You will be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.